Continuing reading The Secret Science by John Baines. This is the reason for all fasting, privations, torments, and discipline of mystics who seek the development of their conscience. This discipline is to harl the body, to shake it into awakening from its lethargy. The worst of this peculiar state is that nobody is aware of it, and when a man is told about it, he laughs ironically and says, "I am asleep? How can this be so when I am awake?" This inability to recognize the state of sleep immediately hinders all possibility of progress, as it is impossible to ask someone to fight something whose existence is denied. It is possible to recognize the dormant state only by careful self-observation and self-analysis. How different, then, is the concept of pleasure and pain. All purely physical pleasure favors the dormant state, and all pain, either physical or moral, is a shake-up which dissipates sleep. The one who is fully awakened has no need of pain for development. Because this is so important, let us examine more carefully this matter of consciousness. If we watch ourselves carefully, we will find that in daily life we tend to identify with and let our awareness be pulled toward all that fixes our attention. The more our attention is attracted to a certain event, the more easily do we lose our awareness of ourselves, as attention displaces our consciousness toward the object to which it is attracted. This is when identification between the individual and stimulation is produced, an identification which renders him entirely dormant or unconscious. Is it possible for an individual to be fully awake when he has no consciousness of being? The ego or spirit lives imprisoned in a web of sensations which constantly reach the brain. Multiple are the impressions which are felt through the senses. Imagination works rapidly during the day without a moment's rest. All these sensations are the obstacles which prevent us from being conscious. If we examine the psyche of several individuals, we will find marked differences in the development of their consciousness. The basest man is the one whose center of life is solely physical, who lets instinctive forces predominate in his thoughts and emotions. In others, the center of psychic life is the heart. Emotional, above all, this man lives solely by his emotions. At a slightly higher level, we find the intellectual, whose psychic center is the brain. This man uses his reason in everything and considers everything mentally. These three types of man form ordinary humanity. Machine men are automatons. Above these men is a higher and totally unknown human category in which there are sparks of genius, but nobody knows how they have risen above those born of women to be transformed into sons of God or twice born. These men are not royalty or blue-blooded, wealthy aristocrats. They have nothing to do with material things. They are simply human beings who have attained all that all humans believe they have, such as will of their own, free will, conscience, and liberty. In order to get an idea of the development of these chosen people, many are called and few are chosen, we will establish a brief classification. On the lowest plane of the elect, we find the man who could have been born in any of the groups described above, but has soared beyond his group by having come into contact with a school of occultism. He acquires an ego or psychic center, which is more or less stable, and begins to know himself. This man nevertheless still faces the possibility of lagging behind and returning to the dormant state, of reverting to his original state, because what he has attained is not yet permanent. It has not become flesh of his flesh and blood of his blood. On a higher plane is the one who has attained physical crystallization. That is, one who has been able to fuse his soul into one and recast it in a certain direction. Naturally, it is possible that this crystallization was in the wrong direction, and if so, this man cannot reach perfection, unless he decides on an instant reversal and proceeds to unite with that which was crystallized. Once this has been done, the way is open for a new crystallization with that which is desired. At the summit of the road of perfection is the man who has been able to attain the most complete development and evolution possible to a human being, and attain forever will, conscience, immortality, and mind over matter. We can observe that all occult development is centered in the soul of an individual, and first of all eliminates all that is negative and undesirable, in order to substitute good qualities, and subsequently the joining of all the strong currents of the soul under the guidance of the ego and the will. If we analyze our soul, we will understand its extreme complexity. We will discover the hidden motives which impel us to react in one way or another. Within us there are forces which prevent the correct operation of our machine, and these are complexes, inhibitions, and negative or disintegrating feelings and thoughts. Our life depends much more than we think on our soul. All that will subsequently appear physically originates in the soul. If a man is ill, it is because his soul is sick. If he ages, it is because his soul has aged. If bad luck follows him and he attains nothing in life, it is due to his soul. It is extremely difficult to see ourselves, to recognize our own limitations and mistakes, because generally the cause of our misfortune lies deep within our psyche. It is through the soul that the positive and negative powers to which we have previously referred arise. According to predominant forces within us, we elevate or debase ourselves daily. It is a destructive power which takes over when we are pessimistic, downhearted, sad, melancholic, or timid. The man who is successful has learned consciously or unconsciously to unite himself with a constructive power, using his will, feelings, and imagination to that end. A little later we will give instruction for the practical use of this tremendous power. In this chapter, we will concentrate on examining man's large and small problems which arise entirely from the combination of spirit and critical mass. And there we see this little diagram that shows spirit in the middle, a little black dot, and mass or body as a ring around that little black dot. If we realize that we are spirits in animal bodies, we will understand the eternal conflict within each human being, the conflict between the ego and the body or mass. Of course, it is only possible to be identified with the physical body, since this is the vehicle of the spirit. It is the material shape with which the spirit is covered in order to be able to act on the physical plane. As the spirit and body are opposite poles of the same power called the mind, life on earth is a veritable captivity for one who has not educated his mass in order to serve the spirit. In the largest part of the human race, the spirit serves the body and becomes a veritable slave to it, and has at all times to lend its power to satisfy the mass. This is the situation which man fails to realize. The spirit, which is a superconscious and superintelligent power, is the servant of mass, which is unconscious and raw material. From this arise all human misfortunes, conflicts, contradictions, ailments, and pain. Occultism is the science of becoming conscious and intelligent, educating the mass so that the spirit may act with full power and intelligence. This is the real union with God. This is the union with the spirit itself, which is attained by knowing oneself. Any spiritual discipline which does not spring from this foundation is false and capricious, and nothing will be gained by the one who endeavors to reach God without having first conquered and educated himself. Many pseudo-occultists claim to have reached cosmic consciousness or union with God, but it would not be difficult to prove that they have not even become conscious themselves, which is an important step to attaining cosmic consciousness. We must always start by being conscious of the material world to become aware of our exact position, because from the moment we begin life within the physical body, we must not forget this position as we endeavor to reach unknown heights. In occultism, the 5-star symbol or pentagram, which represents man with legs and arms outstretched, is well known. This star is used in occultism because it represents an ideal, that is, the man whose conscience and spirit entirely dominate his body. Worldly beings who are materialistic are represented by the inverted star, that is, where the body dominates the spirit. One who has become aware of the pentagram lives a very different life from the one who has not cultivated his spiritual faculties. Physically, his existence may be similar to that of any other man, but psychically, he lives in an entire different world, a world where there is no ugliness, hate, fear, death, pain, or destruction. The occultist is a real scientist who has learned consciously to direct his vehicle or his body, an extremely complicated machine which dominates and drives the worldly. And it shows the pentagram. Occultist pentagram is the one with the point at the top, and the inverted is the worldly pentagram with the point at the bottom. This fantastic vehicle, which is the human body, is driven by the initiate as an enormous power plant which connects and disconnects circuits at will. If the mind works too rapidly, the mental circuit is disconnected and becomes inactive. If the initiate desires a change in personality in order to understand others in another intellectual or social sphere, his vibratory state is changed to adjust to the environment within which he wishes to act. If his liver or stomach becomes ill, an electric overload is established on this circuit in order to fill them with life and change illness into health. Naturally, this is not accomplished in a short time, and this is the reason many students of occultism become disheartened at not acquiring practical results in a short time. For the initiate who has attained total and complete dominion over matter, nothing is impossible, as it is even possible to rejuvenate the physical body and live on earth for a length of time that would seem incredible to the uninitiated. Let us recall the Hermetic aphorism which says, "Everything is mind. The universe is mental." This is the ultimate key to all human fulfillment. All possibilities are contained in this aphorism. Meditating carefully on this, it is possible to understand many things. We understand that the cause of all our difficulties lies within ourselves, and that by changing our mental state, we will win out. If we understand that all is mind, we will see that our body is mind power contained or coagulated in a certain vibration. Our brain, our liver, our heart are mental matter through which we are able to think. With strict self-discipline, the initiate gains control over the mental or atomic matter throughout his entire body, being able to act physically through the mind. Since we are speaking of the physical body, let us analyze that imbalance which is known as illness. Generally, medical science only eradicates the poisonous fruit from a hidden tree, the roots of which are within the soul. The tree flourishes in the form of illness and is watered and vitalized by the negative state of the subject. All that we call illness originates first in the soul, even a purely physical wound, like a fractured leg. Nothing occurs all by itself. Everything has an original cause, a cause which we must ever seek in the vibrations of the soul. Illness is generally due to a psychic and mental state of a destructive character which has long been within the soul. This negative state forms a true magnetic nucleus of a highly destructive nature. When one of these electromagnetic coagulations acquires a great deal of power due to a constant negative state. It unfolds or physically materializes as illness. This illness, treated in an orthodox manner, disappears, but the root, which may flourish again with the repetition of negative states, which act as a fertilizer to the tree, remains within the soul. It is also possible that the destructive vibration which produced the illness may penetrate the soul from without in a moment of vital weakness or a strong, depressive, or hysterical state, which makes man's inner defenses vulnerable. What we call aura is the electromagnetic irradiation of an individual, which is a protective shield against foreign vibrations. When this defense disappears, we are at the mercy of an immense ocean of vibrations from the surrounding atmosphere. It can be said that many sicknesses are caused by germs. Nevertheless, it must be considered that the virulence of a germ does not depend exclusively on the germ itself, but on the body's contact with the germ. The existence of a conducive environment for the germ's growth is absolutely necessary. As long as science does not seek the cause of illness on the plane of mental power, it will be unable to find a remedy for ailments produced by supermicrobes or ethereal microbes on the energy plane. An example of this contact could be cancer, a possible case of contagion, dependent upon the patient coming into contact with someone whose aura is open. We can compare these electromagnetic coagulations to leeches, which settle themselves on some part of the body and suck the vital essence from the cells. Once this being has extracted the vital essence, cellular degeneration ensues due to a shortage of energy. As the destructive coagulation continues feeding, it becomes stronger and stronger and spreads until it causes total annihilation. It is impossible for an individual with a strong magnetic aura full of life, love, and beauty to contract cancer. Many ailments are produced by a destructive state of energy generated by the individual himself. Occult medicine starts, therefore, by altering the vibrations of the soul to destroy all that is negative, which could, or already has, manifested as illness. If we could peer into the energetic plane, we would be horrified to observe ourselves and others. We would see veritable walking zoos, men with mental energy parasites embedded in certain parts of their body, in accordance with the dominant passion of the individual. Each one of these parasites is seen as a grotesque animal, a veritable demon which feeds on the vital energy until complete exhaustion occurs. We need only to realize that all human energies create the mind, heart, and desires in order to understand that with each desire and each thought we are bringing to life invisible children, which are our good and bad luck. This is why we can state without exaggeration that man is the child of himself, for, stemming from his auric personality, he is forming and creating himself. Upon himself alone depends the angels or demons he creates. Sometimes we meet people who, in spite of looking clean and well put together and completely normal physically, give us a feeling of disgust and repugnance, even though we cannot define the cause. The reason for sudden antipathy or sympathy is the vital electromagnetism they have, the predominant vibration of such persons, which comes from his thoughts and feelings. The one who acts according to the laws of nature is always protected by nature, but the one who breaks the laws must suffer nature's displeasure. Can anyone complain about his bad luck when he takes advantage of any occasion to slander and constantly offend others? Can the invert, the drunkard, or the depraved complain? Or can the pessimist who complains all day and imagines 1,000 different calamities. If we analyze our actions carefully, we will little by little discover the reason for our failure, be it economic, emotional, or any other nature. We will realize that our present situation is produced by a chain of events which stems from laziness, indolence, or mistaken decisions. The habit of intending to do many things and never achieving one, for example, is highly pernicious because, to attain mastery and power over our outside events, first it is necessary to keep one's word, to fulfill and put into practice one's own decisions. One who practices this precept methodically and patiently will find that his mastery over the forces of nature increases daily until he is able to attain all his purposes. Chance ceases to exist as his will is converted into one of nature's laws. The first step toward the solution of any problem is optimism. It is enough to believe that something can be done, and half the battle is won. A positive mental attitude is indispensable for the one who seeks superiority. He must at all times feel happy, positive, full of life and energy, in tune with the divine creative forces. He must admire beauty in all its phases in order to purify and lift his soul. He must never feel conquered or depressed by anything. As the Son of God, man has a right to enjoy the protection of his Father and all his worldly goods. Upon adopting a positive mental attitude, man is isolated from all destructive vibrations from without, and according to the law of harmony only captures that which is positive and uplifting. In any town or city there is a veritable electromagnetic cloud in which the instinctive, psychic, and mental vibration of the inhabitants have coalesced. This cloud floats over the town at a height determined by the density of the vibrations. All those living there or who arrive there for the first time absorb the vibrations from this cloud. As we unfortunately live in a passionate and selfish environment, it is easily understood that daily we are overloaded with undesirable forces. These passionate vibrations of the collective soul of the inhabitants of the town are those which absorb us and sink us into misery, depression, anguish, and mediocrity. It is difficult to raise an emotional and mental vibration above the predominant pitch of a social group, but this is the only way to become free of invisible intoxication produced by these negative forces. If on certain days we awake in a bad temper and say, "Everything is against me, life is not worth living," or something similar, we immediately descend to a negative or lower wavelength. Because we all go through moments of crisis and difficult situations, we must endeavor to deny consciously that which is negative or bad for us. When we exert our will and overcome all that is unpleasant and bad surrounding us, we are scientifically practicing mental transmutation. This means acting differently from other people who, as soon as they suffer any slight setback, exaggerate this tremendously by telling everybody about the terrible misfortune they have suffered. The correct attitude is to keep calm and vibrate on the opposite pole of the vibration we wish to change. Nothing happens by chance in life. Everything occurs according to definite causes. What happens is that we cannot always distinguish the true causes of that which we experience as effects. The law of cause and effect is what delineates the road which we will travel during life, and therefore it is quite impossible to put into motion only those positive forces or causes, so that in the future we may reap well what we have sown. The good or bad luck of an individual is always due to unknown causes which become manifest as effects. Luck is a question which worries all those abandoned by fortune and who do not succeed in spite of their brave efforts to do so. These unfortunate people look with envy on those who succeed financially, on those favored by nature whose touch turns into success without any great effort on their part. Let us carefully examine this point, as this is extremely interesting to those who desire to succeed, as it is only fair that man should seek material and spiritual prosperity. There are 4 determining factors in the luck of an individual. Number 1, his destiny, that is, the position of the stars at the moment of birth. 2, the destiny of his parents, which in essence is transmitted to the children. Number 3, experiences gathered until he reaches 21 years of age and until he reaches his 33rd birthday. 4, his love life. We will not consider here the mental attitude or willpower or other qualities which influence or depend in some way on the factors mentioned above. Destiny. When a child is born, that is, with the first breath, he receives the cosmic vibrations from the different planetary positions. Each planet has a special electromagnetic displacement, and according to its position in space, produces different combinations of cosmic rays which govern the future destiny of the child. Apart from this, we should consider the good or evil karma, causes, emanating from previous incarnations, and which manifests itself and turns into effects. If the karma is hard, it will be difficult to succeed in life until this has been entirely atoned for. By means of occultism, it is possible to change an unfortunate destiny to a successful one, but this is with higher teaching, which can only be disclosed to those who are initiated. Many times destiny is the only cause of apparent injustice and contradictions in life, when it condemns beings of exquisite sensibility and intelligence to a life as outcast, while others living in a purely animal existence are favored with material prosperity. In the fulfillment of the supreme law of cause and effect, children are born blind, deformed, paralytic, and mentally weak, and others die months or days after having arrived into this world. There is no injustice. Each one experiences the effects of actions he has put in force. God punishes no one. It is man who, upon breaking the laws of nature, punishes and limits himself. Parental influence. From the moment when an ego, or spirit, is in the material womb, it starts receiving the electromagnetic vibrations of the mother through the umbilical cord. If the mother is a passionate, selfish, and hysterical woman, these forces will be deeply engraved on the child, who will have to fight these destructive vibrations passed on to him in order to succeed. On the other hand, the father passes on at the moment of sexual orgasm all his spiritual masculine force, which will be the active force the child will inherit during life. If the father is a timid man or weak character and not virile, the child will always lack push or the masculine force necessary to succeed in life. Here we return to what we started in the chapter on sex when mentioning the crime that is committed when a pregnant woman has sexual relations. This factor powerfully influences the nerve balance of the future being, and therefore affects its destiny. Also decisive are the mental, instinctive, and emotional states of the parents at the time of conception, for at that moment they both form a veritable mold within which the future personality is cast. It is true that the sins of the fathers are visited on the children, because in reality the child is the unfoldment or continuation of the parents inherited in part their karma. In spite of tremendous scientific advances, the process of procreation remains on a level close to animals, as neither the father or the mother can ensure a life according to the most just and noble human desires for the child they have procreated. They do not know if the child will be normal, if he will have average intelligence, if he will be healthy, if he will be successful in life, and many other more important things. Being born, therefore, is entirely chance. In many cases, it means bringing a child into a life of pain, full of tragedy, illness, and misfortune. Has anyone the right to run a risk of this magnitude? Has anyone the right to transfer his own sins to a baby coming into the world? When science has advanced sufficiently to recognize the truth of what we are saying, the procreation of children will be scientific, based upon precise dates and times, in order to bring forth a race of stronger, more intelligent, and more capable beings in all respects, without chemical, genetic, or biological experiments, but using the sources we all carry within us and which are close at hand. First experiences. From the first breath, the first feeding, and the first kiss, different reflexes and habits are ingrained in the child from different experiences. From the beginning of life, the foundation of the future man is being forged. A child resembles a blank magnetic tape, where his experiences are being recorded in an orderly fashion. Each of these experiences is another brick in the building of the adult. Each positive or negative experience conditions his psyche until it reaches a specific shape. According to this psychological shape, the adult may succeed or fail. Failure is entirely a mental state, a product of obstacles which are known as complexes and inhibitions. First experiences are the greatest risk in life, as future destiny is being forged, awakening forces which in due course produce certain effects. Nothing is more dangerous or decisive than the first sexual experience, for this awakens the consciousness. If a woman has an unpleasant first sexual experience, happiness in love will be difficult because psychically she will be scarred by this. 2. When a man has his first sexual experience, his future steps will be guided according to this first experience. When a person's psyche contains a great number of negative factors, it is necessary, by using the power of the mind, to cleanse the brain of all that is negative, replacing this with that which is positive. No one can go beyond the limit of his knowledge and experience. That is, at no time can a person react or analyze something from a viewpoint foreign to his experience and knowledge. Nevertheless, one who cultivates himself spiritually may analyze everything from a high plane, as the spirit is beyond good and evil, beyond personality and viewpoints. The spirit is essence, life, truth, wisdom, and love. For the student of occultism, it is entirely possible to change his undesirable psychic recordings for others more in tune with his personal ambitions. A man who has loved life, a man who has given his heart to a passionate, domineering, and hysterical woman, will never be able to succeed in life whilst joined to her. When a woman is domineering and does not surrender spiritually to her mate, these lower beings appear to deceive the unwary, who believe that the spirit of the... Wait a minute, I turned too many pages. When a woman is domineering and does not surrender spiritually to her mate, she absorbs all his masculine, etheric magnetism, rendering him empty and depolarized, incapable of creation and success by means of his active power. This man is in a situation like that of a vehicle with a powerful motor which lacks the necessary combustion. This man will always be a failure, and if he attains anything, it will be with much sacrifice, and only at the moment when the woman is saturated with his vital energy and cannot therefore absorb any more. As this woman acquires masculine magnetism, she will become more domineering and self-willed. For man, his mate represents nature. Therefore, nature will react to him according to the treatment he receives from his wife. If during an attack of rage she insults him or shows hate and jealousy, she is provoking all that is negative, passionate, fatal, and dark, and he will never succeed, as bad luck will follow him. The complete opposite occurs when he finds a woman who knows how to love, who will surrender herself to him spiritually, who will never, even in a moment of rage, react violently toward her mate, and who will be beside him in illness and in health, fortune and misfortune. The fortunate being who finds a woman with these qualities is favored by fortune. His good star will shine, and he will be successful in all of his endeavors. A woman of strong instinctive vibrations, when joined to a weaker man, will always be limited in her aspirations. We have analyzed these 4 points as factors of good and bad luck, and will add to these established points. When there is a lack of union, disharmony, and difference within a family, each member will be battling alone, and one who is alone is at the mercy of the blind forces of nature, and therefore will be unable to fulfill his ambitions. If a family is closely united and work and live solidly united, its members will be on the road to fulfillment of great accomplishments. If the student cannot experience this family unity, he must join any collective movement where there is union, fraternity, and mutual assistance. A movement of this nature is of powerful invisible help. Magicians and Spiritism. And I think this is a pretty long chapter, so I will begin that in the next reading.